this conversation now. South Africa's Presidential Climate Commission has finished its 5 years and handed over a report to President Cyril Ramaphosa. The president praised the commission for helping South Africa plan for a cleaner, greener future. He said their work makes sure climate action is fair, protecting jobs and communities, and no one is left behind. A new team of commissioners will take over the next year to keep pushing the country towards a healthier, more sustainable future. For more on this now, we rope in Blessing Manale from the Presidential Climate Commission. Mr. Manale, thank you so much for your time on the program. Thank you for joining us this hour. So the Presidential Climate Commission has just handed over its 5-year report. In your view, what have been the most significant achievements of the Commission so far, and how do you think these accomplishments will shape South Africa's climate and economic policies going forward?
Thank you indeed, and good morning to the viewers. Yes, indeed, on Friday we handed over our 5-year report, which is titled The Origins of Our Future. It's called The Origins of Our Future because it is inspired by our democracy and by the fact that we're in the cradle of humanity and facing the climate crisis. We thought that is a befitting title for the 5-year report. But the major achievement it outlines is the fact that we've been able to bring South Africans around a round table to start agreeing on a consensus as to how our transition should look like. The Commission managed to table to Cabinet a just transition framework. We have most importantly been able to bring on forth South Africa's global leadership in climate diplomacy, and we have literally re-echoed and raised the tempo on the drum around demanding for more, better and agile climate finance. And we've also been able to say that government must do better. And we think that South Africans, even if are worried about other things, they're a bit more aware than they were 5 years before the Commission was established. So those are our 5 apex achievements, but there have been challenges too.
And you speak of increasing the tempo on the drum. So considering the Commission's focus on a just transition, just how effectively do you think South Africa has managed to perhaps balance the need for cleaner energy with the need to protect jobs? Because also much has been said about that, also just on support of the communities that depend on industries such as coal.
Well, I mean, there are multiple impacts. Firstly, yes, you have got the immediate impact of jobs. For example, if you decommission a power station, you automatically close the coal mine that was there. You automatically shut down the transport service that were moving workers to that power station. But also the enterprises that were benefiting and rendering either contracted services to the mines disappear. But the engineers, the consultants that goes there and want to buy something local also stop spending the money. So the impact is multiple, and we felt it in Komati when the power station was decommissioned, not because it was going greener, because of its economic life, but we had not planned for that. So we've learned a lot from Komati, and that's why the element of just. And our definition of the justice is that it has got 3 judges. It must be restorative, it must be procedural, and it must also be restorative. So people must get new benefits. It must be equitable. The risk and opportunities must be shared. And the process of coming to that process must be as inclusive as possible. And in Komati, the country and the Commission was in its early stages, missed the mark on all those 3 elements. And that's why we ended up with job losses, a dying small town, and then people unhappy about that they were not consulted. So we learned a lot as the Commission, and anyone's taking those lessons to industry and to government.
This brings it back with striking the perfect balance between, lives as well as livelihoods in the greater scheme of things. I know the President emphasized that climate action must be fair and inclusive. So in practical terms, Mr. Manale, what are some of the examples of policies or initiatives that have been implemented so far? And this is to ensure that no one is left behind on this transition, still on that of balancing lives and livelihoods.
Well, practically what we did when we got into Komati, after just handing over our report, we said as the Commission, we will lean on implementation. We are not an implementing Commission, but let us showcase how it can be done. And we started setting up through partnership implementation models, a reskilling program there to reskill workers that were working for the power station that may not necessarily be able to go into other power stations. We started repurposing with the ESCOM leading that process with both grant and borrowed money to convert the old power station into a solar farm. And under those solar panels, you have got hydroponics and koi fish farming, so that those that can no more sell fruits and vegetables to workers can continue to produce them and sell them to them. So reskilling, repurposing of the power station has been helpful, but also it has been able to start saying, what can you do with that monster of a facility? Do you break it down? Do you convert it into an energy museum? So there is short-term planning, and people are envisioning what happens to a town that used to be a power station. But practically, that's what has happened. But the other most important thing is that we had said we're not leaving Komat so that the community can continue to talk to each other, to government, and so that the donors can see what it really means to decommission for green targets if you don't have the economic and the social mechanisms to cushion that community. So it's a good and a sad learning platform, Komati, for us.
And here's the thing now, we're looking at the end of an era, but the start of another era, just looking ahead for the next 5-year cycle with a new group of commissioners. What do you believe should be their top priorities for South Africa to strengthen its commitment to a greener, more sustainable future? I know that they'll be taking the baton forward from where you left off, but also having, that energy where you have those legacy projects where they're able to just move on smoothly.
Well, there are 3 areas. The first one is to make sure that they focus on implementation broadly. And the president has said, let us make sure that the money that has been pledged comes in quickly, and the commission must lead the charge. Let us make sure that the public sector invests more in green industry, and the commission must continue to monitor that. But let us make sure that we start responding to the non-attractive aspects of climate action, which is adaptation. So let us make sure that also that local government is able to respond with the agility, with the capability when there are droughts, when there are floods, and so on, people are displaced. But I think most also importantly said that let us implement what we beginning to call social ownership of renewables, so that when we shut the power station or when workers lose jobs, they are the ones that must own at least a fair amount of the new renewable energy plant, and we're not speaking BEE, we're speaking real co-ownership, where when you lose a job in the factory, the new factory becomes yours. Those who have done reports on, and we think that a little tweak in policy ownership of energy should have workers owning solar panels, farms, and selling them to the municipalities as they retire back to their homes. Those are the immediate things.
Yeah, and we cannot have this conversation without just going back to some of the concerns that have been expressed about, global climate, as well as how it's slowing down in momentum. Just how important is South Africa's role in international climate efforts, particularly in just making sure that the work of the Presidential Climate Commission helps the country maintain credibility and leadership on the world stage, particularly on matters of climate change?
Well, indeed, I'm quite delighted that you asked that question. We are trailblazers, South Africa, not only in climate policy and global diplomacy, but also in sustainable development. As you know that we hosted literally the first summit after Rio, what was called Rio Plus 10 later, called the World Summit on Sustainable Development. We hosted COP17. We've hosted other major conferences on oceans, on parks, on protected areas, on endangered species. So across the length and breadth of the climate, development, and finance. And we hosted the Financing Commons Summit. I think the challenge is not just making these events spectacles. We've got to make sure that we defend the outcomes and we take the outcomes to the next country that hosts or to the next partner that listens to us. And we've got to be emphasizing, we're not in the space of international relations of the Commission, but we're using every platform to say that we're calling upon the American people, the American government, to accept our hand of partnership and say that the U.S. remains a critical partner and cog in global diplomacy, in climate, in development, and in security. And we call on them to continue to listen to the voice of the South. But practically, as the Commission, we're working on what we call country platforms, where donors can come in and put money into a national platform. We don't want to call it a fund, something like we started with the investment, Just Energy Transition Investment Platform. So we think that is an area where we can add strength to the country by hosting the platform where we watch the money, where we make the money prioritized. Secondly, is this new network of climate commission globally called the International Climate Councils Network. We are leading the Africa chapter of that because we think that we can learn from all over, but we can use climate commission to deepen climate democracy so that governments and industry don't take the decisions alone.
Right, Thomas, thank you so much for your time on the program. That is Blessing Manale, the Presidential Climate Commission's Head of Communication and Outreach, who was talking to us about the Commission's work and its 5-year legacy. Thanks so much indeed for your time on the program. Here's a quick break. When we come back, we bring you the last 20-minute stretch of the program. Stay with us.